Lesson 8, Unit 3. Risk Planning, Part 2. It's important to note that it's not economically feasible to prepare a response plan for all risks identified in the project. For that purpose, you need to prioritize the risks based on their level of impact and probability. The matrix below helps determine a risk prioritization list that you can use to prepare the risk response plan. The levels are defined by the levels of impact and probability that determines the type of risk response for each risk. There are 4 strategies to respond to risk. Avoid the risk, which requires making changes to the project plans to remove the risk. Transfer or share the risk. This means moving the liability of the risk to a third party or share the risk with a partner organization. Mitigate the risk. These are the actions to reduce the impact or the chance of the risk occurring. Accept the risk. This is to accept the consequences of the risk. Because the risk might be so small, the effort to do anything is not worthwhile. For risks that have been quantified at level 9, the response should be to avoid the risk. You need to take immediate actions. For risk with levels between 6 and 4, the strategy is to transfer or mitigate the risk. This group of risk is your first priority, and with this type of response. For risk with levels between 3 and 2, the strategy is to mitigate or transfer the risk. This is your second priority. For risk with a level of 1, the best strategy is to accept the risk. Sometimes the costs to mitigate are higher than the impact of the risk on the project. In the risk management plan, you need to detail the risk response strategies for each risk and the preventive or contingency plans. Preventive plans include the actions to prevent the risk from happening or reduce the probability that the risk may occur. These plans require the use of resources. This is a proactive approach. Contingency plans are plans for those risks where you cannot build prevention strategy. These plans keep resources as a reserve in case the risk occurs. This is a reactive approach. The risk log needs to be completed with the risk response actions and the name of the project team member responsible for managing the risk. This log needs to be monitored and updated on a regular basis. The risk contingency budget is the reserve funds you will need to cover the costs of the project if one or more of the risks occur. For each risk, you calculate the cost of the impact of the project and then multiply by the probability of the risk. The total will be the budget you will need to cover the cost if any risk happen to occur. This budget is different from the budget you will need to use to implement the preventive actions to minimize, transfer, or avoid a risk. A contingency budget is a reserve budget that you only use when a risk occurs. A final note is to understand that risks that are so significant that if they occur, they can close the project. Force majeure or greater force is a sentence to describe unexpected events that are so catastrophic that they are outside the scope of risk management planning. These risks include unpredictable natural events such as volcano eruptions, earthquakes, and human events such as economic collapse, wars, terrorist attacks, and even global pandemics.